Throughout the history of storytelling, we've been conditioned to expect our protagonists to be virtuous, upstanding individuals who always strive to do the right thing. However, in recent years, a new breed of protagonist has emerged. They're flawed, they're morally ambiguous, and sometimes downright despicable. They are anti-heroes, and they've become some of the most compelling and enduring characters in modern fiction. So in this video, we're going to be exploring the evolution of the anti-hero from their earliest roots to their modern day incarnations, and examine why they resonate so much with audiences in a way that traditional heroes just can't. Personally, I will take a good anti-hero any day over a regular hero. And they don't even have to be hot, you know? Give me those complex and captivating characters that blur the lines between good and evil. I love it. So let's take a little trip down memory lane to the ancient days, where the specters of antiheroes first began to emerge from the shadows. Prometheus from Greek mythology. Prometheus is known for stealing fire from the gods and giving it to humans, which angered Zeus and caused him to punish Prometheus severely. Despite being punished, Prometheus continued to defy the gods and is considered a trickster and rebel figure, making him an anti-hero. And then we have Loki from Norse mythology. Loki is a shape-shifting trickster god who is known for causing chaos and mischief. He often helps the other gods, but his actions are motivated by self-interest, making him a morally ambiguous character and therefore an anti-hero. And then we have Gilgamesh from Sumerian mythology. Gilgamesh is a legendary king who is the protagonist of the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the earliest surviving works of literature. He's a complex character who is both heroic and flawed, making him more of an anti-hero than a traditional hero. We also see glimpses of anti-heroes in folklore, starting with, Robin Hood. Robin Hood is this legendary outlaw who, he does steal. He steals. Okay, he steals from the rich. He kind of started the whole eat the rich movement. So whilst, he is seen as a hero, his methods objectively aren't very moral or legal, making him very much somewhat of an... Can you say very much somewhat of? I don't think you can. Making him somewhat of an anti-hero. And then we have Baby Yaga, not to be confused with Baby Yoda. Baby Yaga is a witch from Slavic folklore who is known for her cunning and unpredictable ways. Love it. She often helps those who seek her out, but she can also be very cruel and capricious, which, makes her a sexy Slavic witchy anti-hero. And then we have the Pied Piper, which I think we all kind of just readily accepted as a hero. But so the Pied Piper is this figure from German folklore who, essentially he lures children. He lures children away with his magical flute. Not gonna lie, it's a little sus. But he did save a town from a rat infestation, which makes him somewhat of a hero, but also his actions towards children are not always clear. And I don't know, unpopular opinion, but I think children are more important than rats. I said it. So we've looked at mythology and folklore, which is really the starting point of all literature and media. So before we dive into some of my favorite modern day anti-heroes, let's have a little look at the psychology behind the anti-hero. A paper published in the Journal of Psychology of Popular Media offers an explanation for why we sometimes find ourselves rooting for the Tony Sopranos, Walter Whites, and Harley Quinns of the world. It has to do with the extent to which we see aspects of our own personality in them. The study found that self-reported antisocial tendencies among viewers, such as aggression and Machiavellianism, predicted increased affinity for the genre and the characters. So for example, someone who scored higher on aggression also watched anti-hero programs more frequently, reported increased enjoyment of their revenge-based motivations, and felt they were more similar to a favorite anti-hero compared to those scoring lower on aggression. We've evolved to learn from stories and vicarious observation. And some media psychologists argue that the so-called, transportation that we experience when we're watching movies or TV shows or reading books is being able to experience danger and moral transgression from a safe distance. Of course, the downside to this is that we become subtly desensitized, or more likely to give bad behavior a free pass, as, you know, these quote-unquote bad characters start to feel like your friends. And, you know, what do? We support our friends. We get the shovel, we bury the body. I think another reason why we root for anti-heroes is that they often embody traits that we secretly admire or we wish that we had ourselves. Anti-heroes are often brave and independent, and they don't care what other people think. They just do what they want and they don't let anybody stand in their way, and that's appealing, I think. Another reason why we love anti-heroes, and this might be a little bit contradictory to my last point, but we also really love contradiction on this channel, is that they can be more relatable, actually. They have flaws and vulnerabilities just like we do. Or you do. I don't have any. They make mistakes and they struggle with their own inner demons. And I don't know about you, but I think we can kind of relate to that, right? They also provide a refreshing change from the usual narrative of like good versus evil. So they break the mold. They also usually have a good anti-hero anyway, has a complex backstory, or, you know, some sort of tragic life event that not necessarily justifies their actions, but makes it more understandable. Yeah, actually, you know what? It justifies their actions. So yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is the psychology of the anti-hero it's multifaceted. So let's take a look at some of the most renowned anti-heroes of our times from books and other sources. We have Rodion Raskolnikov from Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky. In one of the greatest novels of all time, Dostoevsky creates an anti-hero who himself struggles with being an anti-hero, which is just so meta, and I love it. He's often regarded as an anti-hero due to his complex and morally ambiguous character. He's a young, impoverished student who becomes obsessed with the idea that he is an extraordinary person and is above the law. He believes that he is capable of committing a crime without feeling guilt or remorse, and that the ends justify the means. Despite his criminal actions, he also displays some heroic qualities. He's fiercely independent, determined, and capable of self-sacrifice. He's motivated by a desire to do what he believes is right, even if it means breaking the law. In many ways, his anti-hero status stems from his internal conflict between his desire to be a great man and his awareness of his own flaws and limitations. He is both sympathetic and repulsive, making him an extremely complex and compelling character. Next we have my baby, my husband, Joe Goldberg. Joe Goldberg is probably my favorite anti-hero. I recently read the first two series of the books, You and Hidden Bodies, and Joe is just such a stellar example of a good anti-hero. You know, despite his despicable ways, he's just so deeply likable and relatable. And yeah, he's hot. Okay, he's hot. His character is crystal clear from the start, with little to no sign of redemption, but he is so intelligent, thoughtful, and capable, it's difficult not to side with him in all things. Even things that seem unspeakably evil, like kidnapping and murder. He is deftly written, and his victims are cleverly likable when he is obsessed with them, and cloyingly annoying once he is over them. So even when it's wrong, we find ourselves on Team Joe. He also has a complex backstory with a lot of trauma. Of course, I don't think we can talk about Joe Goldberg without talking about Love Quinn. And she is, in her own way, also an anti-hero. Together, they make the ultimate anti-hero couple. They have flawed versions of what it means to do good, and they express acts of kindness through the forms of murder and violence. Ah yes, the sixth love language, murder and violence. Heathcliff. Heathcliff is probably the most iconic character from Emily Bronte's broody, tumultuous family drama. You hear his story from the knowing yet compassionate perspective of the housekeeper Nellie Dean, who exposes his faults but shows us he's someone to be pitied as well. Mistreatment and misunderstanding in his youth spur Heathcliff to seek revenge as an adult. Ironically, his villainous actions ultimately rouse other characters to choose a more heroic path. Hannibal Lecter. Hannibal Lecter is the great anti-hero of horror. He possesses both villainous and heroic qualities. Lecter is a brilliant psychiatrist and a cultured individual with a refined taste for the finer things in life. However, he is also a cannibalistic serial killer who derives pleasure from the pain and suffering of others. But despite his apparent actions, Lecter is again a complex character who is not entirely devoid of redeeming qualities. He possesses a strong sense of justice, as evidenced by his willingness to help Clarice in The Silence of the Lambs, and his disdain for those he considers rude or impolite. Like, yeah, does he snack on humans? Yes, but he doesn't like uncouthness, and I respect that. And now for some honorable mentions, we have Tyler Durden from Fight Club. Tyler Durden is a charismatic and anarchic figure who encourages the protagonist to rebel against societal norms and embrace chaos. Tyler is both a hero and a villain, depending on how you interpret his actions. With Tyler, it's a little bit more nuanced because he's both a hero and a villain, depending really on how you interpret his actions. Then we have Holden Caulfield from The Catcher in the Rye, a teenage anti-hero who rebels against authority and conventional society, but is also deeply troubled and disillusioned. Holden's struggles with mental illness and alienation make him a sympathetic but flawed character. Overall, anti-heroes provide a fascinating and complex perspective on the human condition, and challenge us to question our own assumptions about morality and heroism. So yeah, let me know in the comments below who your favorite anti-hero is. Mine is me.